So our chapter number 5 is on consumer behavior. We're going to try to understand consumer behavior as far as the marketing part is concerned. We also want to understand how consumer behaves because if you remember, marketing is about understanding consumer behavior or consumer needs and then working on it, then trying to provide value to the consumer. And that's why we need to understand consumer behavior first in order to go with our marketing activities, in order to create our marketing activities for the consumer. So we'll start with what we're going to do throughout in this chapter is we're going to try to understand this model, which is called consumer behavior model. You'll see in the middle is the consumer purchase decision process, surrounded by the situational influences at the bottom, then psychological influences on the left, marketing mix influences on top, and sociocultural influences on the right. So we're going to understand and discuss and understand all of these one by one, starting off with the middle one, which is consumer purchase decision process. So consumer decision purchase process basically consists of 5 stages that a buyer or a consumer passes through in making choices about which products and services to buy. So before they make the purchase decision, or even after they have made the purchase decision, these are the steps or these are the stages that a consumer goes through, and we're going to discuss them one by one. Starting off with problem recognition, or which is also called perceiving a need. So when the consumer recognizes the problem, which in other words means when the consumer perceives that he or she has a need to make that purchase. So that's where it all starts from. It starts with problem recognition. Now, some of the causes of perceiving a need, or recognizing that there's a problem and now I need to make this purchase, is one of them is out of stock. That is, they're out of stock. They don't have enough of what they need. Or which is like quite simple, you run out of milk, you run out of groceries, and then you go and you recognize the problem. Then you're like, oh, now I need a new product. You go into the stores and get the new product. So that's first one. The second is disappointment with current product or brand. That is, you realize that you are not satisfied with the current product or brand that you own, and you need a new one now. Now, a few examples of what we can do about it, what the marketers can do about it, is, for example, if you've seen the Lowe's ads, the Moment ads, as we call them, there's a series of ads that Lowe's had shown. These were called the Moment ads. You can go online, you can go on YouTube and watch one or two of these ads in order to understand how the marketers try to make consumers realize that there's a problem. And I've put a few screenshots in here. The first one that you see here, the moment you realize your family grew but your washer didn't. So that's an ad where Lowe's is trying to um, make the consumers realize that they have a problem with the current washer that they own. The second one you see is the moment you realize you have enough food for your guests, but not enough fridge. So that's again a moment when an ad when you make the consumers realize that they have a problem with the current refrigerator that they own. So those are a few ads that that kind of trigger that in consumers' minds. We do not have to have such direct advertisements in order to make people realize that. You can also have some ads, like you see, you can watch introduced in iPhone 11 ad, on YouTube, I actually would want you to pause here and watch all of those ads. Watch Lowe's The Moment ad. One of them, it's just a 30-second ad or around that. And also watch Introducing iPhone 11 Apple ad. Just watch that and then come back here. So these advertisements, if you watch both of these ads, you realize that the advertisements, Lowe's is like a direct one, which is, directly triggering the problem recognition for consumers. But it does not have to be that way. It can be like the Apple ad. If you just saw it, you know that if it's just that these advertisements activate a consumer's decision process by they can just show the shortcomings of the currently owned products. For example, in the iPhone ad, all the features that they show, they're kind of saying that these are the shortcomings of your current phone that you own. So that's also a way to create disappointment with the current product or brand that the consumers own, and make consumers realize that they have a problem. All right, so next, once the consumers have realized that they have a problem, they have recognized the problem, next what they do is they search for information, that is, they seek value. In order to do that, they can go for internal search. Internal search is basically you try to search internally in your memory for previous experiences with products or brands, or your knowledge of or the knowledge that you already have about other products or brands. You search your internal memory, you make a search there first, and then, or you can just stop there. If you have enough knowledge, if you have enough experiences, you just go to buy the products there. It depends on what kind of product you're buying. Or you can go for external search, which involves personal sources. You can ask your family and friends about the new product that you're trying to buy. Or you go for public sources. That is, you search for consumer reports, their reviews, and generally we do that these days. We search the reviews and see whether public has liked, the other people has liked this product or not. Or we can go for marketer dominated sources, which is the marketers create this content using blogs or content creation, as it's called. These guys try to give information on their own about their own products to the consumers. So you make either an internal search or an external search after you have recognized the problem. The third step is alternative evaluation. Once you've searched information, try to assess the value. How do you do that? You do that using your evaluative criteria, which is, if for example you want to buy a new phone and you have all of these brands available in the market. Now which one do you buy? So first you go for your evaluative criteria, which is the factor or the factors that represent your the uses that you want to make of that product, whether these are objective attributes or the subjective attributes of the brand. You basically, whatever you have in your mind with respect to your own personal uses of that product, that's your evaluative criteria. Basically, you already know that this is what I'm going to rate my phone on. Let's say you want a very good camera, and that's your thing that you want to see, you want to compare in different brands. So you look at our evaluative criteria, and then uh, out of all of these brands that are available to you, based on your evaluative criteria, you're going to create a consideration set. What does a consideration set mean? That you are not, if you go to buy a cell phone, let's say tomorrow, and you can do this exercise in your mind right now. If you want to buy a cell phone tomorrow, are you going to compare Samsung and Apple and Huawei and Nokia and Sony and LG and HTC and Motorola and Lenovo and Xiaomi and Google and so on? Are you going to evaluate, or are you going to collect the details or information on all of these brands? Probably no. You're going to only select a few, and we call these few consideration set. So consideration set is out of all these n number of brands that you have, based on your evaluative criteria, whatever that criteria is, based on that, you make a consideration set. That is, these are the ones that I am going to consider. I am not going to look at all of the brands that are available. I'm only going to look at these three: Apple versus Samsung versus Google. So I am going to evaluate only these three brands and compare the specifications and read reviews and look at, what the products, and look at the features of the products one by one for only these three brands. So that's called your consideration set, the ones that you're only going to consider for your purchase. So that's alternative evaluation. Next comes your purchase decision. So you have evaluated Apple versus Samsung versus Google, and now comes your purchase decision. That is, you really buy the value that you were seeking in the beginning. So when you are buying at that stage, you need to decide from whom to buy. Let's say you picked Apple out of all of those three. Now you need to decide whether you want to buy from Apple Store. Do you want to buy it from Apple website? Do you want to buy it from a retail store like Best Buy? Or do you want to buy it from an online store like Amazon or whatever is available? So that's what comes into picture at that time. You need to decide from whom to buy. And you need to decide when to buy. So do you want to buy it right now when the new Apple phone has launched? Or do you want to wait for some time for it to go, the prices to go a little down? Or it doesn't have to be related to price. Do you want to wait for other people to use it, look at the reviews and then buy it? Or whatever comes in, whatever factor based on whatever product we're talking about. When do you want to buy is what you have to decide when you have made the purchase decision. And the last one is post-purchase behavior. So we do not stop here. We also want to know the post-purchase behavior. Why do we want to know post-purchase behavior? Because we are talking about marketing. We're not talking sales, we're talking marketing. In marketing, it's important that the consumer is satisfied. It's, remember, the eras, it's the marketing era and the consumer relationship era combined, what we are talking about right now. If we want to build a relationship with the consumer, we have to care about their post-purchase behavior as well, whether they are finding value in consuming or using the product or not. That's also important for us. So what do we do for that is these customer satisfaction studies. We can conduct studies, satisfaction studies, and the previous studies that have already been conducted tell us that satisfied customers tell three people. If we have satisfied customers, they are going to tell three people. So we want these customers to be satisfied, and that's why we're worried about their post-purchase behavior. We're talking about their post-purchase behavior because we want them to be satisfied and we want them to tell three more people. But more importantly, the dissatisfied customers tell nine people, and that's what we are worried about. That's also what we are worried about. We want people, the satisfied customers, to tell three more people about their satisfaction with the product, but we do not want our dissatisfied customers to tell nine people, which is more of, and which is going to hurt us more, which is going to hurt our brand, our organization more. So that's why we want our consumers to be happy or satisfied even after they have made the purchase. So all of this brings us to cognitive dissonance, a concept called cognitive dissonance. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but Cognitive dissonance is the feeling of post-purchase psychological tension or anxiety consumers may experience when faced with two or more highly attractive alternatives. So let's say you finally bought Apple, and I would say Apple is not a good example to use here. Let me say that Apple was not you're not an Apple buyer. Let's assume that you're not an uh, Apple person, and you bought, let's say you had Samsung and Google. Let's say they are equally attractive alternatives, and you bought, Samsung. Okay, you purchased Samsung. Now, um, once you buy you already bought the product, but you still have that tension or anxiety as to whether you did the right thing or not, whether you it would have been better if you would have purchased Google. So that's called cognitive dissonance, and you can think about your experience where you had that feeling, you purchased a product, and then you thought, oh, maybe I should have gone for the other one. So that's what cognitive dissonance mean. And in order to reduce that cognitive dissonance, what marketers are supposed to do is they're supposed to advertise more, they're supposed to show more that yes, people are satisfied, so that the consumer thinks, no, I did the right thing, because other people are also talking good about it. It means that I did the right thing. So we want to reduce that cognitive dissonance. We do not want this person who has this cognitive dissonance to tell 9 or 12 more people that he's still suffering this anxiety, is not confident about the purchase. We don't want to do that. We want all these consumers to be satisfied with the purchase that they've made. So this was the consumer purchase decision process. It's a 5-step process, as I said before. Starts with problem recognition, then information search, then alternative evaluation, then purchase decision, and then post-purchase behavior. So that ends our middle portion. That's the consumer purchase decision process. Next, what impacts this consumer decision process? Out of all those four, we're going to discuss situational influences next. So these situational influences impact or can impact consumer purchase decision process, all of those 5 steps that we just talked about right now. Now, in situational influences, what are these situational influences? These are the 5 possible aspects of consumers' current situation, as the name suggests, that has an immediate impact on the consumer's purchase decision process and separate from any other influence. So all of these influences that we're going to talk about, these are separate from each other. These all have their individual impact on the consumer purchase decision process, as I said before. So these are the 5 situational influences: purchase task, social surroundings, physical surroundings, temporal effects, and antecedent states. Starting off with purchase task. The purchase task itself, that is the reason for engaging in that purchase decision in itself, can influence the purchase decision, which means the purchase that you're making, whether that purchase is a gift or is it for your own use, that can change the purchase decision. So sometimes you would want to buy, if you're buying a gift, you would want to buy a better brand than probably even you use. Okay. Or vice versa. You'll probably use a better brand but want to gift not a very expensive brand as a gift. Depends what kind of relationship you have with the person that you're gifting the product to. So that purchase task itself can be a reason, can influence the purchase decision of the consumer. Next is social surroundings. So based on what your social surroundings are, basically if you go for, let's say you go for shopping with a friend of yours, okay, or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or your spouse or whoever is accompanying you with your shopping, that can influence what purchase you make. So versus when you're alone, when you're not with anybody else. So your social surroundings, depending on who you are with, it can be a friend, it can be parents. You might want to buy an expensive brand when you're with your friends, or when you're with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you're okay with, if you're spending your own money with your parents, you might not want to buy an expensive brand, but if you're spending theirs, you might want to buy an expensive brand. So depending on what your social surrounding is, your purchase decision can change. Okay. Next is the physical surroundings, such as the decor of the store, or music that's going on in the store, or whether the store is crowded or not. Based on that, again, your purchase decision can change. It can get influenced. Next is the temporal effects. That is the time of the day, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, night. Based on that, maybe your decision can change, or the amount of time you have available with you to make that purchase. That can also influence your purchase decision. And the last one in situational influences is antecedent states. That is, before you came in to make that purchase, what was your mood, for example? So if you're happy, or you're sad, or whatever the mood you were in before you came to make that purchase, can also influence your purchase decision. Now, in addition to that, in addition to the mood, the antecedent state also involves um, amount of cash you have on hand. Okay, of course, that's also going to uh, decide what purchase you're going to make. For example, it has been shown that consumers with credit cards purchase more than the consumers that have cash or debit cards, because they're not really paying the money at that time. It's not going out of their pocket, at least at that time. They make the credit card users make more, spend more than the ones who use debit cards or cash. So that's also something that influences purchase decision. So these are the five situational influences that can impact consumer purchase decision process. Next, we're going to look at psychological influences, but we're going to cover that in next topic.